The military helicopter crash to the north of Darwin, where 23 US Marine personnel have been confirmed to have been on board that helicopter when it crashed. Several of them, in fact most, if not all, were injured, one in a critical condition. Back to political reporter Cameron Redden in Canberra. Cam, has there been a statement from the United States?
Simon, in the last 2 minutes, we have heard from the Marine Rotational Force Darwin, of which these crew were a part. This is based at the RAF base in Darwin. There's rotations of US Marines that go through this base. And we can show you this statement on screen now, which confirms some very troubling news. We can tell you that 3 of those 23 personnel are now deceased, were killed in that helicopter crash today. The statement from Marine Rotational Force Darwin reads as this. Following the crash today, there were a total of 23 personnel on board that V-22 Osprey helicopter. 3 have been confirmed deceased, while 5 others were transported to Royal Darwin Hospital in serious condition. We received an update about 45 minutes or so ago from the Northern Territory Chief Minister, Natasha Files, confirming that 23 of those on board the helicopter had been identified, were at least accounted for. 18 were being triaged. We knew 5 had been taken to hospital. We now know that when this helicopter went down 2 kilometres inland of Melville Island, north off the coast of Darwin, during a range of exercises known as Predator's Run. It was the second day of those operations. We knew 5 were in hospital. We now know, sadly, that 3 of those have lost their lives. This is the first we've heard from the American camp this afternoon. We know that it's been a long, ongoing rescue operation throughout the afternoon, which then shifted to a care and a care operation, really, with care flight helicopters being brought in to transfer many of those who were involved in the crash from Melville Island back to Darwin. They were then taken from Darwin Airport to Darwin Hospital, where 5 of those, at least now 5, had been treated in Darwin Hospital. The hospital there has been placed on a code brown, which essentially stands up more staff. It places them on a higher level of alert, aware of that extra support that's going to be required. We know that this helicopter went down just after 9 o'clock local time during these exercises Predator's Run. There are about 2,500 personnel involved, including several hundred US Marines, troops from the Philippines, from Indonesia, from Timor-Leste, as well as the Australian Defence Force, although it's the understanding that there were no Australian Defence Force personnel on this helicopter when it crashed. We are just really now getting a bit of a sense of the scale of this incident, Simon. That breaking news in the last 2 to 3 minutes or so, confirmation from the Darwin Rotational, the Marine Force, of which these crew were a part, that 3 of those US Marines have lost their lives. We understand that more are going to hospital as we speak. There's still a transfer or a transportation of personnel from Darwin Hospital, I should say from Darwin Airport to Darwin Hospital ongoing as we speak. So that's the indication that we have right now, Simon. Sadly, 3 confirmed dead.
Yes, and the statement that you referred to too from the Marine Rotational Force also confirms this incident took place at 9:30 local time. So that's 10 a.m. Eastern. Initially, the reports were this took place at 11 Eastern, 10:30 local. So we now know this crash that happened in a very remote part off the Northern Territory in the Tiwi Islands, Melville Island. This incident took place at 9:30 this morning. So I think that just goes to show, Cam, that given the remoteness of the location and also the rescue and no doubt the triage operation, this is why it has taken some time for the fullness of this story to emerge right throughout the day. And I must say, you know, the reports we were getting initially were quite concerning. And now I would say, you know, you and me speaking to our sources, the worst fears have really been realised here, haven't they?
Well, I think it speaks to the complexity of this operation, Simon. It was early in the day. It's the second day of these training exercises involving multiple military personnel from multiple countries, 2,500 personnel from 5 different countries. And it was in a region, in some way, the response was as good as it could have been, not just the military presence in this area north of Darwin, but also we learnt from the Northern Territory Chief Minister this afternoon that there was already an emergency response unit standing up, ready to go, responding to bushfires in the area. And as soon as it was known that this helicopter crash had occurred, that team was redirected to put their entire focus into responding to this incident. There was a recovery effort, we know, Simon, that went for several, a rescue effort that went for several hours to get many of those personnel away from the crash site. 5 at least were transported to hospital. And we've been speaking throughout the afternoon, this particular helicopter with its history of known faults. We are expecting to hear more throughout the evening and well into tomorrow, as well as to the condition of those still in hospital. We don't exactly have an up-to-date number of how many are currently at Darwin Hospital. We know, as I mentioned, that resources have been stood up to provide as best care as possible. The Prime Minister speaking earlier today, offering greater assistance as well. But look, we're in the space of a month now, Simon, we've had 2 fatal military helicopter crashes on Australian soil. You think back to the Taipan helicopter crash in the Whitsundays, 4 Australians killed, 3 American Marines now confirmed dead in this crash. It's been an awful month.
Yeah, let me just also tell our viewers what the Defence Minister and Deputy Prime Minister Richard Marles has had to say. So he's taken to X this afternoon, formerly known as Twitter, and said this, quote, "I'm saddened to hear of an aircraft incident north of Darwin involving US Defence personnel during exercise Predator's Run. Our thoughts are very much with our close friends, the United States." Richard Marles goes on to say, at this critical early stage, our focus is on responding to the incident, ensuring the safety of those involved. Our ADF, Richard Marles says, is providing support and we stand ready to help however we can. Now, that was issued just after 4 local time. And then we heard from Natasha Files. We then heard from the local police authorities too, and confirmation there, Cam, as you say, from the rotational force that this incident on Australian soil involving US Marine Corps has resulted in 3 US Marines losing their life. Cam, do appreciate your coverage right throughout the day there in Canberra. And we've also been speaking with Matt Cunningham as well.